Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Last Honest Realtor podcast. I'm your host, David Fleming. Thank you so much for joining me today in what is the second podcast of 2026. In case you missed it, a couple weeks ago, we did the first podcast, which was essentially a look at the burning questions for 2026, if you will. Now, I did use the word prediction because people like to search for that, but I don't love the predictions per se because every agent makes them, and every single market participant, every economist, everywhere, they love predictions. And what I always say is it doesn't really matter if your predictions are true or not. What matters is bringing people to the discussion points. Now, in that podcast, and I encourage you to go back and take a look, we talked about market trajectory. We talked about sales volume. We talked about the pre-construction condominium market, which of course I've never sold a pre-construction condo in 22 years, and we discussed how we could have seen this collapse coming. We talked about the resale condo market. We talked about real estate prices across Canada, and last but not least, we talked about net migration in Ontario. So while I did make some predictions therein, it's more about the discussion. What are the hot topics? What are the important topics? What are the things that you're going to hear about all year? And then sure, if you want to talk about what we might expect, we absolutely did that. Now, I had a lot of fun with that podcast because I kind of like the comments on YouTube. I mean, some of them are mean, don't get me wrong, but they're funny. And so I've been writing Toronto Realty blog since 2007, and the readership there is very different. To be totally honest, the commenters, they're astute, they're informed, they're savvy, they're knowledgeable, they're respectful. I don't get troll comments. I don't get negativity on there. And then I was told when I started the podcast, oh, you wait for YouTube. So you know how Jimmy Kimmel has like his mean tweets? I thought it'd be very fun if at the beginning of every Last Honest Realtor episode, I could read one of the comments from the last week. And you might not think it's that bad. And then maybe this, why don't I respond kind of like a diss track, And, diss track from my day, people are going to comment, okay, boomer, was NWA versus Ice Cube. And now diss track because what, Kendrick Lamar? I still don't know who that is, by the way, had a diss track with Drake, who I could care less about. Definitely dating myself. But yes, America's Most Wanted. It was Ice Cube's solo release after he left NWA. And man, they just went at each other. So here we go. This is funny. I really enjoyed this. The comment says, David, you are so wrong on your predictions. They are way too high. Loose your job right now, and you will be lucky to replace it for half the salary. To that I say, if I do get a job for half the salary, it will still be more than you make day trading crypto in your mother's basement. Boom. Maybe Isabella can throw in a drum there. So yeah, I really do enjoy the comments. And you know what? Some of them are actually pretty good. One gentleman commented and said, it's not about market shocks, because I was discussing this concept of market shocks, as much as it is economic reality. So keep the comments going. I think they're fun. That one made me laugh. And we are pushing through to the end of January right now. Not a heck of a lot to report on as far as the market itself goes. And it's not to say the market's bad and all the headlines are and the comments are. It's that there's nothing to sell. And so what we're going to talk about today, we're talking about the freehold market, but I'm going to use a few examples of some properties that came out, were great, and did exceptionally well. So by the time we get to the third episode, we'll probably be into or approaching February. We'll have some January data, but what I see right now, a lot of relists from last year. And if I had to guess, I'd say in the first couple of weeks of January, 70% of all new listings were relists from the prior year. You may say that inventory is high, but not quality inventory. So today we're going to talk about the single family housing market. Now this is, in my opinion, the engine of the real estate market. And not to say that condos are insignificant, but we know that condos are a lower proportion of overall sales. Sure, there's a lot in Toronto and the 905, but as you look at Ontario real estate, I mean, there's not a lot of condos in Innisfil. So we're going to talk about freehold because that's the baby, right? That's the OG. That is, I think moving forward in 2026, what most of the conversation will be about. Last year was all about condos. We know where that is. It's almost boring at this point. Let's talk about the freehold market. So I am primarily a 416 agent. A lot of what I talk about today is going to be 416 based. Keep that in mind as I go through these. And I've got 6 points to discuss. Not so much predictions, but I will therein make a prediction. Keep in mind, these are the things that you just want to know, you want to be aware of. So my first point, which is a prediction, the A properties are going to sell exceptionally well and the others will not. What I mean by this is simply put on the grade scale, which they've probably done away with in public school because you don't want to highlight the A kids because it'll make the D kids feel bad. But this is good news for the buyers looking for B, C, and D properties. because they're not selling as well. People want perfection. And if I could age myself again, I'll say one of the things I noticed last year was that because it was a buyer's market, buyers wanted absolutely everything to be perfect, especially in the market for condos, which isn't what we're talking about today. But young buyers basically wanted a PDI, a pre-delivery inspection, which is what you get when you buy new construction. I get emails like, hey, that light bulb doesn't work. So I think that the A's are going to sell exceptionally well. People hear it's a buyer's market and they decide that this applies to every single house in every single area, but it's not going to be for the A's. If you're looking for the A house as a buyer, you're going to have a very difficult time. I had a conversation with a client today. A property listed for 1199, and they were like, oh, if this is listed low, oh boy, we don't know about that. And I said, listen, work backwards. It's a 1.5 house. Forget about the list price. It's a 1.5 house. Is it listed for 1.5? Is it listed for 1199 with an offer date? Don't worry about that. It's a 1.5 house. Forget about the process. If you're thinking, I can't believe I have to pay $300,000 over list, it's a buyer's market. No. It's a 1.5 house. It's listed for 1199, and it is an A, and it is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So the A's will sell. If you're a seller, you need to turn your property into an A. Now, this is why we renovate all of our properties before listing. And by renovate, I mean, worst case, it's a coat of paint and some light fixtures. Worst case, best case, I mean, worst case, it's a $100,000 renovation. We've done a lot of those over the last 18 months. It is crucial right now. And what we're seeing, as I mentioned, buyers want perfection, buyers are buying the A's, is we need to turn all our properties into A's. Now, what is the A? 1, in terms of property, and 2, in terms of presentation. So what I mean by that is it needs to be presented in an A form. You can't have iPhone photos. You can't have your friend, the wedding photographer. You need the best of the best. Buyers are attracted not just to the property, but to the marketing. And then the property itself, yes, absolutely. You need to renovate. You need to repair. You need to combat every single objective out there. Now, I'm going to use this example, 1 Ravenna Crescent. This was a house that when it came out, for those that don't know, this is in the Pocket, sort of Danforth area in the central core of Toronto. When this came out last week, I said this thing's going to go nuts. And it did. And we'll come back to that later on. But this thing had the extras. So it's a typical 3-bed, 2-bath, semi-detached, except, well, it had the main floor powder room. So it's actually a 3-bed, 3-bath. And they taken down all the interior freestanding walls. So you don't have any evidence of the original house built in the 1930s. Completely open concept, which everyone coming from a condo wants because condos are open concept. And it had a finished basement that was deep. It was dug out. It was spacious. Everything was in great shape. It had a beautiful kitchen, beautiful bathroom. And it didn't just have parking, it had a garage. But it wasn't just a garage, it had a 2-car garage. This was an A. It had not just the things that the buyers want, but the things that the buyers didn't even know that they were looking for. And ironically, I went through there with clients and they passed on it because they said, yeah, listen, this is more than we need. We're not sure if we want to pay more for it, but that house did exceptionally well. And that's what I mean by the A. Now, here's the funny thing, guys. Buyers know it's a buyer's market. So they think they can have it all. So they won't consider anything less than what's perfect. But what this does is it changes the objective of the entire buyer pool and drives them all to the same listings. And then there's competition. And then they act confused when it doesn't go their way. More on this later. But you see this sort of vicious circle. It's a buyer's market. So buyers tell themselves they can have whatever they want and they can offer under list and all the headlines say it's a bad market. And then in the spirit of saying, well, I'm going to set my sights higher, they're all attracted to the A's. And thus they're all at the same listing and the A's do exceptionally well. And we're going to talk about competition next. So my second point, January, February, and March, we'll see more competition than April, May, and June. Now, some people might say, well, this happens a lot. This is very common. But here's the thing. Buyers always assume that January is slow and February is slow and it's a great time to buy. It's slow because there's no listings. And what that does is it pushes all the buyers to the same properties. Now, there's very slim inventory out there right now. In the conversations I have with agents, I try to talk to 10 agents a week. I just pick up the phone and I'm like, I'm not going to name names on this podcast because that could be tacky, but some of the very big agents, I just pick up the phone. If they answer, great. Hey, how's it going? What are you seeing out there? And that to me is the best way to look at what's going on in the market. Talk to people that are in it. And every agent is saying, there's nothing out there right now. That's what they're saying. Oh, I've got buyers. There's nothing out there right now. There's nothing out there right now. And the few houses that do come out are fought over like crazy. Like I said, specifically the A's. So here's an example. 49 Grenadier comes out at 1199. And it's January. And a colleague of mine, she tells me this story. She's got a client that's interested. And her client, he's a bro dude, right? Bro dude probably years ago would have had like the barbed wire tattoo on the bicep, right? So bro dude says, it's a slow market, so we're gonna slow play this. My colleague says, bro dude, it's not a slow market. He's like, it's January. Everyone's sleeping. So bro dude comes up with all of the reasons why this thing shouldn't do well and all the reasons it shouldn't sell for a big number. He goes through his logic. He has two strategies. One is to offer the list price with, get this, a handwritten letter to the elderly seller that, quote, pulls at the heartstrings a little. Or two is to not offer at all and keep an eye on it and see what happens. This is the 2026 buyer mentality. It's what they read, it's what they're told, but it's not real. And it might be post-May 2-4 weekend. But in January, February, and March of 2026, this is what's going to happen. And guess what happened? Did Bro Dude make an offer for 1-2? No, Bro Dude didn't make an offer. This got 15 offers, sold for $1,521,749. Why that number? I don't know. It's probably like the day they got married or something, 749. Maybe they're playing Lotto 7, no, it's 649. So point is, Bro Dude was wrong. Bro Dude is trying to manifest, put it out in the universe. No one's interested in this house. Oh, no. Bro Dude, 15 different people were interested enough to make an offer, and that says nothing of the people that didn't make the offer. Now, you go back to Ravenna Crescent for a moment. They got 9 offers, even though some people were saying that they were overpriced at their list price. And I'm going to go through that in another section. But it's funny because this happens every year, and it's like real estate amnesia. We forget. January, February, and March, there's competition in the freehold market for the A's and maybe even for some of the B's. But this happens time and time again, and the buyer pool out there is in this denial. Bro Dude, all jokes aside, there's a lot of folks out there that think that. And the YouTube comments are going to come in. People are going to say, you're wrong. I'm not wrong. Ravenna didn't not get 9 offers. Grenadier didn't not get 15 offers. They got them. They sold for big prices because there's demand in the market. There's nothing out there. And in Jan, Feb, March, you're going to see competition. Now, what else happens every year? The market drops like a stone after May 2-4, and there is zero competition. So for the sellers out there that are saying, I'm going to wait until the spring, why? Every seller out there, well, my garden will be in bloom. I actually do have one listing where it's like the nicest garden in the city, the nicest exterior property. I'm like, well, you have to wait because that's the whole sale. It's an emotional pull. But for everybody else out there, May 2-4 weekend, every year, right? You're leading up to it and you've got that one seller that drags their feet, and you can't get them out in mid-April and you can't get them out in early May, and you bring it out after May 2-4 weekend and nothing, because everybody's bought. And the people that haven't bought are tired of looking and making offers. And then the market drops like a stone. So that is what is going to happen this year. Jan, Feb, March will see more competition than April, May, and June. And the sellers waiting for spring, I think it's a huge mistake. Now, last night, 119 Woodfield Road hits. I already texted the agents and I said, and the listing of the week award goes to, it's a semi-detached, 3-story, 25 by 120 foot lot, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1.119 list. Guys, that's a $1.5 million house. Did I say it has a private driveway? This is going to go nuts on the offer night. Now tell me again in the comments section about how the market is imploding and how it's a buyer's market and how this is overpriced and blah, blah, blah. But I will bet my life on this. They're going to have double-digit offers and it's going to sell for a number. But again, go back to my first point about the A's. Before I even got into this house, what I mean by that is I don't care what kind of counters they have. You have an Edwardian red brick home, so it's pretty. You have a private driveway, which is rare. You have a ridiculous backyard, 25 by 120. So if you're watching this and you live, I mean, anywhere, but Toronto, you're like 25 by 120. What is that? That's my garage. Okay, 25 by 120 in the central core, and this is down at like, Coxwell and Dundas area. That's a huge lot. It's 3 stories. It's a finished basement. It's 4 bedrooms. Guys, we're checking all the boxes and we haven't even been in yet. So I don't care about their counter and I don't care about their tile. I don't care about their hardwood. I care about the fact that it's 3-story, red brick Edwardian, private driveway, 25 by 120, huge backyard, big deck, checking boxes, man. That property is going to go nuts. Now, if you brought that out after May 2-4 weekend, no, it wouldn't, because there's going to be too much product in the market, too many buyers have bought, and the ones that haven't bought are going to be tired. Now, my next point. Ooh, this is a fun one, because we get to talk about numbers. 2021 and 2022 prices will not always make sense to you. So here's what I mean by that. There's no doubt that prices are, quote, down from the peak. The problem is the buyer pool and other market participants want this to be a universal rule across the board, no matter what. But it's not. So let me use the example of that property on 1 Ravina. This sold for $1,432,000 in January of 2021. So everyone thinks, well, that was behind the market today, so it should sell for less than what they paid, right? But there's got to be a smell test here, guys. There's got to be a vibe check. And some of the folks on YouTube are going to say, well, if someone pays more than that, they're overpaying, plain and simple. No, not necessarily. Just because the market average has done one thing doesn't mean that an individual property can't go the other way. So let's use the numbers. Let's say the GTA average home price in January of 2021, and depressed as January is, because from January of 2021 to February of 2021, it went up 8%. But let's just use January of 2021, 967, 885, and we'll use the December price from last December, which is depressed as hell. We're up 4%. So that makes this house worth $1,489,280. But it sold for $1,605,000. Well, they overpaid. No. This is what I mean. The 2021 and 2022 prices might not make sense, but I'll do you one better here. Let's use the home price index. Let's use the 416 home price index. In January of 2021, it was $961,100. December, our most recent data set, it was $934,800. So it's down 2.7%. That makes this house worth, and I'm using air quotes, $1,393,336. But it sold for $1,605,000. So you can say that they overpaid based on what the market says. But this isn't analyzing the PE ratio of a stock and coming up with an exact price. Sorry, you can tell I'm not in that business. But there is no fixed value on real estate, and it is a market. Market has different averages, different indexes, and you can look at the overall GTA average home price, and then you can turn around and look at this one, and I can say, well, not for this house at this time in this area. Tell me that the market's down 2.7% based on the home price index, or that it's up 4% based on the GTA average, and that this house should be worth somewhere between 1.4 and 1.489, and it sold for 1,605. Guys, if you're only looking at what people paid in 2021, 2022, you're going to be very disappointed. Now, on the flip side, and I made this point in the podcast last week, there was this particular condo someone paid $670 for in Feb of 2022, and on average, if you look at the average decline in the 416 condo, that thing should have been worth $580 something. It was on the market for $449. So that's the opposite. Here I'm making the argument that in the freehold market, you can't use 2021 and 2022 prices because they're going to show you a price that's worth way less than it is. But in the condo market, it's the opposite. So I'm just saying, these numbers are not going to make sense in the freehold market, at least as it pertains to the 416. Okay, the next point, number 4, Riverdale and Roncesvalles will be the hottest areas in single family in the 416. Now consider this conversation with a new buyer. They're so excited and they say, it's a buyer's market. We're going to start our search. We're ready to pounce. We're so happy that it's a buyer's market. And also, we really love Riverdale. Yeah, here's the thing about that. Are you sitting down, guys? So I've had that conversation not once, but twice with new buyers that, showed up after January 1st, as everybody does. And it is a buyer's market. It absolutely is on paper overall. But when you get into specific property types or price points, or in this case, locations, it's not a buyer's market. And I said to these guys, I got some bad news for you. So Riverdale and Roncesvalles, they are going to be, in my opinion, the hottest single family areas. Now, why would that be? I've always said that what drives single family residential are 4 things: the schools, the transit, the parks, and the infrastructure. So I've been putting people into Riverdale since, I think my brother and his wife bought a house there in '09. You've got Withrow and you've got Pape and you've got Franklin, great schools. You've got the Green Line, as I call it, green, remember the thing on the subway? I haven't been on it forever. But you've got the Bloor-Danforth subway line, so it's got great access to transit. You have infrastructure, which is to say I want to walk for coffee. I don't want to have to get in my car and drive somewhere, but you've got Danforth. It's got the shops, the restaurants, the groceries. And then you've got the parks. You've got Withrow Park. You've got Riverdale Park. Those four things are what makes a single family area. And you do the same thing in Roncesvalles. You walk out to Roncesvalles. You've got great schools. You've got Garden, Galley, right? You've got excellent ranked schools. You have access. The transit's not amazing, but yes, you can get up to Bloor. You've got the streetcar system in there. And then, of course, you've got parks. You've got massive parks. You've got fantastic parks. Those are the two areas that I think are going to do the best in single family this year. Riverdale and Roncesvalles. Ronci. Oh, it's Ronci, because my friend Mary Kate, who lives there, not Mary Kate Olsen from Full House. This girl was named after Mary Kate Olsen because I think her mother was the captain of the fan club. Has a brother named Uncle Jesse. But yes, it is called Ronci. I always call it Roncesvalles, and I'm always corrected by people that live there. Kind of like when you say the beaches and people go, it's the beach. Yes, there's only one of them. Riverdale and Roncesvalles. Bookmark it. You heard it here first. Those are the two areas in the 416 that are going to be the hottest. The size of the house, the style of the house, the architecture of the house, the price point. So there's another list of four. That's coincidental. But those are the things that are driving people to that area. So schools, transit, parks, and infrastructure. But then you look at size. Most of what's there, semi-detached, single-family residential. You might have larger detached. Some people will sell their 3-bed, 2-bath semi and move up into that big Grand Dame Edwardian that you're accustomed to seeing that's got 5 beds and 4 bathrooms, $3 million. There was one on Grenadier. I put that in my pick 5 a couple weeks ago. That's more High Park area. You've got the architecture. You've got the Edwardians, the Victorians. People love that. You've got the style, obviously. Some people like traditional. Some people like the original architecture that's been renovated. And then you've got that price point. But what you also have there is you have neighborhood and you have community. And that's really, really important for these buyers, because those buyers, the family buyers, the ones that want neighborhood, they want community, they want the friends in their area, they want to send their kids to the same camps, the same sports programs. That's who's buying right now. And a lot of those folks aren't coming from condos. Whereas in 2025, you thought, I'm going to buy a house, then sell my condo, and you realize you couldn't do that because that's how we did it forever. A lot of those folks have already sold their condos. They're being flexible, and that was what 2025 was. So next point I want to make here, guys, prediction, discussion point. The entry-level central core home is making a comeback. And I've touched on this a lot. Do you notice a theme here from the price point standpoint, from the locations we're talking about? Now, flashback to the peak of the market. There was no hotter listing than a freehold worth between 1.1 and 1.4. And you could take a house worth 1.3, list it for $999, you're going to get 20 offers and sell it for 1.4. Then the market changed. And a lot of agents didn't change with it. And I've made this point so many times that in 2024, this inventory was really stacking up and agents had the same idea. I'll list it low with an offer date. Now, in 2022, you had multiple offers every time. And not just for the A's. I'm talking for the B's and the C's and sometimes even the D's. Prices ran hard. And the condo market was so hot, I mentioned this before, that you'd buy a house and then you'd sell your condo, often in multiple offers. Now, when that became more difficult, a lot of people dropped out of this market. But I'd also say that when you had the run up to 2022, when you had the 1.1 houses that started to sell for 1.4, 1.5, that combined with higher interest rates made it a heck of a lot less affordable. But people kept pushing them onto the market. With fewer buyers, more inventory, less affordability, higher prices, and being stuck in the condo that you can't sell, in 2024, we saw this inventory peak. And sellers and agents didn't respond to the market. They kept listing them low with offer dates. Now in 2025, that just became an absolute disaster. And I blame sellers and agents for not reading the market. This goes back to the idea of the A's selling and the others not. So what we would see Tuesday night on the east side, you've got 8 properties that have offer dates. This one's got 0, this one's got 1, this one's got 0, this one's got 2, this one has 14, this one's got 1, this one's got 0, and so on. They would all flock to one property, as I mentioned, the A. And then all the other ones would get relisted. And that was what was happening. So why do I think Having said all that about how tough that market was in 2024 and 2025, why do I think that this market's going to make a comeback? Well, number one, the prices are down. It's a good opportunity. If you saw a house and you said, oh, wow, this is 1.5 4 years ago and now it's 1.3, okay, there's that opportunity. Again, not that one on Ravina that I mentioned because that seems to have bucked the trend, but overall, you might find that. Number two, affordability is up. We haven't talked enough about how the Bank of Canada interest rate's gone from 5% down to 2.5%. Affordability is up and prices are down. It's going to cost a heck of a lot less to acquire and carry. And number three, the quality is down. And that's what I'm seeing overall. There's a lot of relists. The buyer pool, they're turning their nose up at the builder IKEA flip. So all told, there's a huge opportunity here in this $1.1 to $1.4 million price range where you've got buyers that are interested. And I mentioned Roncesvalles is going to be hot. Ronci, I'll ask my friend. I mentioned that that's going to be hot, and Riverdale, where of course the prices are a little bit higher. I told you about the one on Grenadier, the one on Ravina, Woodfield, that's obviously east side, not in the same area. But this is where I'm seeing a lot of the buyers flock to. And I think that that part of the market is going to make a comeback. Now, my last point here, guys, because we have to talk about the 905 to some extent. I've been talking here about the 416, but I'll say this. The 905 is going to continue to have a difficult time in the freehold market. Now, we talk about Canada-wide prices. We talk about the 416. So let me give some perspective on the 905. I'm going to throw numbers at you here. So if you're just listening to this, whether you're watching or listening doesn't really matter. Hear what I'm saying. February of 2022, that's our peak. To November of 2025. I'm using November and not December because December is depressed. 416 average home price is down 14.4%. York is down 23.9%. Halton is down 23.8%. Peel is down 26.9%. And Durham is down 31.6%. Did you see what happened there? The 416 is I use only down 14.4%, but Durham region is down more than double, 31.6%. Now, why is this? Why is this? You've got to look back at what happened beforehand. I'm going to give you two different examples. I'm going to look at Feb 2017 up to Feb 2022. So we're going from Feb 2017 to the peak. Toronto was up 50%. That's a lot for 5 years. But York was up 77%. Halton was up 82%. Peel was up 92%. And Durham region, are you ready for this, was up 108%. So in a 5-year period, from Feb of 17 to Feb of 2022, Durham region went up 108%. Is it any wonder why prices have declined in those areas and will continue to? Now, here's a mind-blowing one. I'm going to go from Feb of 2020, so right before the pandemic. And remember, we had that big recovery, that run up in prices in Jan, Feb, March of 2020 before the pandemic hit. So I'm going to go Feb of 2020 to Feb of 2022. This is 2 years. It's 2 years. Toronto's up 22%. Peel's up 53% in 2 years. Halton's up 56%. York is up 57%. And are you ready for this? Durham's up 87%. The average home price in Durham in 2 years went up 87%. That's from Feb 2020 to Feb of 2022. You want numbers? 657,788 to 1,228,990 in 2 years. The average home price went up 87%. Is it any wonder why that market is going to have trouble right now? We talked about how from the peak to last fall, Toronto's down 14.4 and Durham's down 31.6. It's not enough to say that Durham's down twice as much. That market is going to have a really tough time. Now, you've probably all read the article or seen there was one that was owned by a real estate agent that was complaining she couldn't sell her house. It was the craziest news article to be a part of that story and complain. Bought I can't remember what the numbers were, for like 1.7, tried to list for like 2.5 at the peak and has been slowly coming down since, and now you're at like 1.9 and you're like, I can't get any showings. Yeah, the market's down more than that. It's worth less now. That's how markets work, right? And it was a real estate agent. That was just wild what people do, what people think is great to have in the annals of the internet for all time. But that market went up so much, and I'm talking the entire 905, and it's going to continue to come down. There's just too many people that are listing properties for what they need or what they want, and I'm completely sympathetic to that. I understand you don't want to be underwater, you don't want to lose money. There's land transfer taxes, real estate fees, there's life. But I think that, 60% of all the inventory on the market in the 905 is dramatically overpriced. What that does leave is an opportunity for the folks that do want to sell to differentiate their offering. But I think the 905 is going to have a really hard time as we go through 2026. So just to summarize, to say that we did, our A properties are going to sell exceptionally well in Toronto, and the others will not. So if you're a seller, make your property into an A. You have to spend the money on the repairs. You've got to have an agent that knows how to market the darn thing. January, February, and March will see more competition than April, May, and June. And you know what? We see this most years. We really do. But this common misconception that you as a buyer can walk in there in Jan, Feb, March when it's cold and when it's dark and when no one's out there and avoid, the spring market. I want to buy now. As I showed you with the example of, what did I call him, bro dude? Yeah, like you're not the only one that wanted that great house in Roncesvalles. Third point, 2021 and 2022 prices will not always make sense to you. Yes, we can use statistics to say whatever we want, but there are a lot of houses that are going to buck the overall trends. Fourth point, Riverdale and Roncesvalles, Ronci, will be the hottest areas in single family. You can take that to the bank. I'm already seeing it. Fifth point, the entry-level central core home in single family is going to make a comeback. 1.1 to 1.4 in great areas, schools, parks, transit, infrastructure. That demographic is buying. And my last point, which we just covered, the 905 will continue to have a hard time. So folks, any questions, feel free to email me. Any comments, feel free to drop them there in YouTube. The more the better. Hopefully I get like a really funny one I can read next week. And listen, as I said, the returns are early and they are few, but overall in January, sales are down significantly. I saw John Pasalis put out a tweet. He looked at the first 2 weeks of January, and it's not a huge data set, because it's sort of like, well, when does January 1st fall and when are people coming back? You could have, the first day of the market on the 2nd. You could also have it on the 7th. But overall, yeah, I would agree with what John said. Sales are down. You can feel it out there. Quality listings are down. There's not enough out there. Every agent is saying, I can't find what I want. There's nothing out there. And we just haven't seen a lot of market activity so far. I can say personally, last Jan, I think we brought out 6 listings. We've got 2 this Jan. And that just speaks to the fact that so many people are taking their time and going through, right, as I discussed, make your property into an A. We've got 10 projects underway with my poor contractor who's going nuts right now as we're spending the time to get these things ready to make sure they're perfect when they hit the market. We're going to have a very busy February, but Jan has been really slow. I'm seeing it on our team, seeing it in the office, seeing it in the industry overall. So folks, thanks so much for watching. As always, please remember to like, comment, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's Apple Music, Spotify, something cool that I don't even know about. I just learned what Snapchat is. My 6-year-old son loves making our faces into something weird. I had to explain to him, it's actually, you're supposed to send it to people, but he just wants to use the cool AI filters. So thank you for watching, as always, guys, and we'll see you here next time on The Last Honest Realtor.